Hello Nigerians, we have a breaking news and this is very serious. Tonight we are talking about the opposition in this country and how a plan that was supposed to unite them against President Bola Tinubu has just hit a very hard wall. I want you to stay with me till the very end of this one because this story touches the 2027 election. It touches Atiku Abubakar, it touches Peter Obi, and it touches every Nigerian who is hoping for a real contest come election time. This is landing at a moment when the opposition is under pressure to show they can work together, and instead, what we are seeing is division right out in the open. Before I go further, if you are new to this channel, do me a favor and hit that subscribe button. Tap the like because this channel lives on your support, and there is more coming on this story in the days ahead. Now, back to the news, because there is a lot to unpack. So let us start from the beginning, because you need to understand exactly who is involved here. On one side, you have the African Democratic Congress, the ADC, whose presidential candidate is former Vice President Atiku Abubakar. On the other side, you have the Nigeria Democratic Congress, the NDC, now carrying the presidential ambition of Peter Obi, who many will remember contested in 2023 under the Labour Party banner before resigning and moving to the NDC, where he was officially ratified as candidate on the 29th of May 2026. Then there is a third player in this story, a pressure group called the G-100. This is a coalition of about 100 prominent Nigerians, and it is led by Salihu Lukman, who used to serve as National Vice Chairman of the ruling APC in the Northwest before he broke away. Also attached to this group are names like former House of Representatives member Nena Ukeje, former Kogi State Deputy Governor Simon Achuba, and Professor Anthony Kila. This is not a small, faceless group. These are people with real political weight, and their message has been loud and clear. Here is what we know for certain, documented in black and white. On the 2nd of August 2026, the G-100 released a 7-page open letter. The title of that letter is striking: The Doctrine of a Necessary Democratic Opposition. In that letter, the group made their argument plainly that Nigeria's democracy is under strain because of a fragmented opposition, and that the continued dominance of the ruling APC will not be broken unless the major opposition figures come together behind one single presidential candidate. The letter named names directly. It called on Atiku Abubakar of the ADC, Peter Obi of the NDC, former Rivers State Governor Rotimi Amechi, and former Kano State Governor Rabiu Musa Kwankwaso to set aside their personal ambitions for the sake of what they called a united democratic alternative. Think about that for a moment. A letter signed by nearly 100 public figures, essentially asking 4 of the most ambitious politicians in this country to step back for one person to step forward. That is not a small ask, and predictably, it did not go down smoothly. Now, following that letter, the G-100 tried to move from paper to action. They scheduled what was billed as an opposition summit for the 18th of August in Abuja, meant to bring together Atiku Abubakar, Peter Obi, Rabiu Kwankwaso, Rotimi Amechi, and other opposition leaders under one roof to begin real negotiation on a joint presidential candidate. But here's what actually happened. That summit did not hold as planned. It was postponed, and in the lead up to it, the signals coming from the different camps were already conflicting. Atiku's camp, for instance, did not confirm outright that he would even attend. The Obedient Movement, which is the support base around Peter Obi, made it clear that whether Obi shows up or engages is entirely his own decision to make. So even before the summit could properly begin, you could already see the cracks. This tells you something important, that beneath the public talk of cooperation, there was already hesitation, already caution, already politicians measuring how much they stand to lose if they walk into that room. Let us now go specifically to Atiku Abubakar's camp, because this is where the rejection became most direct. Atiku's senior special assistant on public communication, Phrank Shaibu, came out publicly to respond to the G-100 push. His position, as reported, was that Atiku remains, in his camp's view, the most prepared and most experienced opposition figure to lead this country, and he urged Nigerians to judge the candidates on the strength of their ideas and their policy propositions rather than simply picking one name because a pressure group says so. What is important here is what this signals. Atiku's camp is not saying no to cooperation entirely. They are saying no to stepping aside. There is a real difference between those two things, and I want you to hold on to that distinction because it is going to matter for the rest of this story. Cooperation, yes. Working together on strategy, yes. But surrendering the presidential ticket to another man without any guarantee of what comes after, that is where Atiku's camp is drawing a hard line. Now let us turn to the other side, the Peter Obi and NDC camp, because their response, while different in tone, arrived at a similar destination. The NDC publicly welcomed the G-100's initiative. They did not dismiss the idea of opposition unity outright, and on the surface, that sounds like progress. But when you look closer, the NDC disputed a central assumption in the G-100's argument, which is the idea that a single opposition candidate is the only realistic way or even a necessary condition to defeat an incumbent president. In other words, Obi's camp is saying, we hear you, we are not against teamwork, but we do not accept the premise that Peter Obi must be the one to step down or that unity only counts if it means one name on the ballot. This is a polite version of the same answer Atiku's camp gave. Both sides are saying essentially, talk to us about cooperation, but do not ask us to disappear from the race. And that is the real headline underneath all the diplomatic language. Two of Nigeria's biggest opposition figures, both unwilling to yield ground to the other or to anyone. Now, Nigerians, I have to pause here and clear up something because there has been a lot of noise online about this story, and some of it is simply not true. A claim went around on social media, gathering over 1,000 engagements, alleging that Atiku Abubakar had already withdrawn from the 2027 race entirely in order to step down and support Peter Obi. Let me be very clear with you. That claim is false. It has been checked by fact-checkers, and the most likely origin of that rumor is not any official announcement, but rather a political song or a public appeal circulating online urging Atiku to consider stepping aside, which somebody then twisted into a false story that he had actually done it. Atiku himself has denied any such withdrawal. So please, when you see that circulating on your WhatsApp group or on threads, do not spread it further, because it is not documented, it is not confirmed, and both camps have not made any such arrangement. What is documented is exactly what I have told you: rejection of the single candidate demand alongside general openness to cooperation. That is the fact. Everything else for now remains speculation. There's another layer to this story that you need to know, and it involves former President Olusegun Obasanjo. According to reports, when G-100-linked visitors approached Obasanjo to solicit his backing for the coalition project, they reportedly suggested that he should rely less on Peter Obi as a possible candidate, arguing that Obi may not command the same national spread or the same enthusiasm among young voters that he had in 2023. But according to sources present, at that point Obasanjo interjected, and he was just as clear in ruling out Atiku Abubakar, his own former vice president, as an acceptable candidate for him to support. What Obasanjo reportedly did not oppose, however, was the broader idea of a single credible candidate for the opposition, whoever that may eventually be. So here's what this tells us. Even among the elder statesmen trying to broker unity, there are personal histories, unresolved tensions, and old rivalries sitting right underneath the surface. This is not simply two candidates competing. It is a web of relationships going back years, all colliding at the same political moment. And it is not only Atiku and Obi in this picture. Other opposition voices have weighed in too, each with their own angle. The Democratic Leadership Alliance was notably cautious, with their Deputy National Publicity Secretary stating plainly that the party is not currently in talks with the G-100 or any other group about adopting a single candidate at this stage. On the other end, the coalition of united political parties struck a more welcoming tone, with their spokesman saying they would support a consensus candidate, but only if Obi, Atiku, and the others can reach what he called a mutually acceptable arrangement in the national interest. Meanwhile, the Labour Party, the same platform Peter Obi ran under in 2023, has taken yet another position, calling on other opposition groups to dissolve into its existing structure rather than build an entirely new coalition platform from scratch. So you see the picture now. This is not two men disagreeing. This is an entire opposition landscape made up of different parties, different histories, and different visions of what unity should even look like. Now, let us talk about why the G-100's argument even exists in the first place. Because there is real strategic logic behind it, whether you agree with it or not. The core argument from the G-100 and from voices like the Coalition of United Political Parties is a simple one. When opposition votes are split among several strong candidates, it becomes far easier for the ruling APC to win, even without a majority of the total opposition-leaning electorate. This is basic vote-splitting mathematics, and Nigeria has seen it before. From that view, if Atiku pools votes in the north and Obi pools votes in the southeast, south-south, and among younger urban voters, and Kwankwaso pools his own bloc in Kano and parts of the northwest, then none of them individually may be able to match the combined structural and financial advantage of the APC in 2027. That is the case for unity, stated as strongly as its supporters would put it. And it is a serious argument. It is the reason this pressure group exists at all, and the reason nearly 100 Nigerians put their names to that letter. But now let us give the other side its fair hearing too, because this is not a one-sided argument. From Atiku's camp and from Obi's camp, the concern is not that unity is a bad idea in principle. It is that unity as proposed by an outside pressure group without any agreed process for choosing who leads and who steps back risks being unfair or even unworkable. Ask yourself, if you have built a political movement, spent years developing a base of support, and you are told by a group you did not choose to simply step aside for another man on the promise of some later reward or role, would you accept that without a guaranteed, transparent process? Both camps are effectively saying, if there's going to be a single candidate, let it emerge through negotiation, through primaries, through some agreed democratic method, not through an open letter asking one side to sacrifice for the other. There is also the question of political identity. The ADC is Atiku's vehicle. The NDC is Obi's vehicle. Asking either of them to dissolve their platform into someone else's is not just a personal ask, it is a structural one, touching party assets, structures, and loyal supporters built over years. Let us bring this back down to what it means for ordinary Nigerians, because at the end of the day, this is not just politicians squabbling for its own sake. For the average Nigerian struggling with the cost of living, struggling with fuel prices, struggling with insecurity in different parts of the country, the practical question is simple. Will there be a real, credible contest in 2027, or will a divided opposition simply hand the field over to the ruling party by default? If Atiku and Obi both run, alongside Kwankwaso and others, that gives voters more choice on paper, but it also risks splitting the anti-incumbent vote so badly that none of them can mount a serious challenge. On the other hand, if a single candidate does emerge through genuine negotiation, that could concentrate opposition support behind one figure and produce the most competitive election Nigeria has seen in years. Either way, the decisions being made right now in these closed-door conversations and public statements will shape the choices every single Nigerian voter sees on their ballot paper in 2027. This is why this story matters far beyond the personalities involved. So where does that leave us tonight? My honest take is this. The loudest thing missing from this entire process so far is a clear, agreed, transparent mechanism for how a single candidate would even be chosen if the opposition ever gets there. Until that exists, calls for unity will keep meeting the same resistance because no serious politician steps aside on good faith alone. What Nigerians should be watching for now are a few specific things. Will the G-100 reschedule that postponed Abuja summit, and will Atiku and Obi actually show up this time? Will the Labour Party's call for others to dissolve into its structure gain any real traction, or will it simply be ignored by the ADC and NNPC? And will Obasanjo's own reported reservations about both Atiku and Obi push him toward quietly backing a completely different name altogether? Those are the threads to follow in the weeks ahead. If this story mattered to you tonight, do share it with someone who needs to understand what is really happening in the opposition. Drop your own thoughts in the comment section and stay subscribed, because as this coalition drama unfolds, we will be right here to break it down for you. This has been Neither News Online. Until next time, stay informed, stay awake, and stay with us.